Hi there, everyone. This is Magenta Pixie. I would just like to discuss with you some of the comments and questions we've been talking about on my social media, specifically on my Telegram group, over the last couple of days. We had a conversation about reincarnation, and I responded to several questions in that topic, and other people were talking about that topic. And then that led on to people asking about reincarnation specific to pets and animals. This is touched upon in my book, in my channeled book, Lessons from a Living Lemuria, especially with the reincarnational trapping cycle that is specific to battery farmed animals. That's discussed in Lessons from a Living Lemuria, and that goes into karma and the reincarnational wheel for animals and pets. So that was discussed, and then that went on into several different areas. So the topic here is about pets specifically, really, not just about reincarnation. So I'm going to start with a question that was given to me regarding assisting with issues with someone's pet dog. And then I'll go on with other questions from there. So the first question is, Magenta, I have a question and I wonder if anyone can advise. We adopted a young girl, a Doberman, 18 months ago. She had a bad start to her life. She was kept in a cage and she had little interaction with people and no interaction with other dogs. As a result of this, she's very tense, she paces a lot, but she's also very, very sweet. She is obsessive about her few activities. She can't go out much. She is not able to meet other dogs yet. And unlike my previous Dobermans, I don't feel I can connect with her or reach her easily. She's in her own little world. I wondered the other day if this was something that could do with spiritual work and connection, not just dog behaviorists. Then I saw your posts on reincarnation and animals and pets, and wondered if anyone could suggest anything that could help my girl settle a little bit more and open up to connect. My previous Dobermans were all rescues as well, but I did feel I had an intuition and a connection with them, and we have had many harmonious years together. But this little girl is such a troubled girl, and I'd love to be able to reach her. So whilst I didn't necessarily give any tips for this dog, what I did recount is a similar situation that Catzmagick and myself had with a cat. And I wonder if this same remedy may help this dog. So my reply was, we had a similar situation with a cat. He was so depressed and just would not interact with this world. He'd been badly treated since he was a kitten, and we acquired him at 9 months old. At the time, I was really into the bark flower remedies, so I thought I would try one. I can't remember which remedy it was. It was either white chestnut or sweet chestnut. Catzmagick and I have been talking, and we both think it was sweet chestnut. And also looking at the types of things that these remedies are helpful for, it certainly looks as though it's sweet chestnut is the one that we used. Honestly, it was like a miracle. So we just put a few drops into his water for a few days, and it was literally within days, 3 or 4 days, he came out of his hiding place. So prior to that, he was living in a little cupboard. He just went inside this cupboard. We took the drawers out and gave him the cupboard for his bed because that's the only place he wanted to be. And so he would sit at the back of the cupboard and literally stare at the wooden wall of the cupboard. He wouldn't look at us. And when we put his food in, he would wait to be completely alone before he would come and eat. Miraculously, he did use a litter tray, but we had to also keep that really close to him. So he was really traumatized. So I go on to say, within days he came out of his hiding place and he began to allow us to stroke him. In America, I believe you say pet him. That's what you would say. We like to pet him. Here in the UK, we say stroke him. We don't really say pet him. My friend who knew him before, she was the one who'd helped us adopt him, suggested that we take him on as he was homeless. What it was her neighbour had moved and just left the cat there. No, it wasn't her neighbour. She was moving into a house. That's it. She was moving into a property. And the people who lived there before had tried to get their cat. And then because the cat wouldn't come, obviously he was so traumatized, they just left without him and just left him there. And my friend who'd moved into the house, a massive cat lover, she already had, I think, 4, 5, 6 cats of her own and really couldn't take another one on. And we had 3 cats at the time. We had 2 adult cats, and we had just taken on a kitten, an 8-week-old kitten. And she asked us if we would take this cat before she went searching into rescues for him. I'm so glad we took him. But at first, Catzmagick was a bit sort of, oh, we've already got 3, we've just taken on a kitten. We literally bought a kitten days before. To take on a 4th cat wasn't really a plan, but I was like, please, let's take him on. Anyway, Catzmagick gave in the end. Such a cat lover, hence his name, Catzmagick. So we took this cat on. We didn't even know what his name was, so we named him Aztec. And all our cats have surnames, so he became Aztec Tomahawk. So my friend who knew him before, she knew his history. She knew the people previously at the house. She knew what had happened to him when he was a kitten and you know the things that he was going through with the family. She'd suggested we adopt him. When she came to see him 3 or 4 days later, after we started giving him the sweet chestnut bark flower remedy, she couldn't believe he was the same cat. And at the time, as I said, we had a tiny kitten, and the 2 of them bonded to the point that they became inseparable. And that really helped massively. But that isn't what drew him out of the hiding place, because we already had the kitten then. It wasn't until he'd started drinking the sweet chestnut bark flower remedy that then he started to look at the world around him, and then he noticed the kitten, and the 2 of them became inseparable for the rest of his life. So it was the sweet chestnut bark flower remedy that drew him out of that dark place and into the real world. After that, he was a loving and much-loved family member until he passed. He also became quite famous via Catzmagick's YouTube, and he even made it to TV, a TV company that does sort of little funny clips, asked if they could host the clip on their television site, and we said yes. So I am going to play a little bit of this clip now, and you'll be able to see Aztec Tomahawk and why he became famous, because he's having a little bit of a situation with a fake frog. So here's the clip. So that's the story of Aztec, and because I feel that this Doberman is going through something similar, I'm wondering if this same remedy, and I'm pretty convinced it was sweet chestnut bark flower remedy, I'm wondering if this remedy will help this dog. I went on to say that dogs respond just as well to flower remedies as cats do and as humans do, so go ahead and give it a try. I did also say perhaps a flower remedy expert in the group might comment. I haven't seen any comments yet, but there are all sorts of people in this group, and everyone is very helpful, and being part of this group has been really helpful and lovely, and a really good thing for so many people. And then I just said best of luck with your beautiful girl, and I do feel with love and perseverance you will find the way forward for her, as we did with Aztec. So, Bach flower remedies, amazing how powerful they can be. And I think a lot of people say things like, oh, it's worked because it's the placebo effect, because you believed it would work. But how does that translate to a cat? So this really kind of gave us confirmation at the time as to how lovely and how healing and how helpful Bach flower remedies were. Because it was literally like a miracle. It was like all the traumas had eased, all the fear had eased. And we were so happy when he came out of that hiding place, because we were really worried we were going to be able to integrate him into the family with the other cats. And he was just wonderful. Such a lovely, lovely cat, a real gentleman in the cat world. Always allowed the other cats to feed before him. He was just wonderful. So I really, really hope that anyone out there listening who's got issues with their pet, give these Bach flower remedies a try. It's one tool of many. There are all sorts of things that you can do to help your pets with issues, but this is what helped our cat Aztec. So moving on to the next question. Magenta, as an animal advocate and investigator, I have needed to be in slaughterhouses and factory farms, so I'm very grateful for your book, Lessons from a Living Lemuria. In terms of these animals being trapped in a reincarnational cycle, how will they be freed? And what is our highest service on their behalf? In many ways, we've treated animals like the cabal have treated us. And that is kind of in Lessons from a Living Lemuria, that's kind of touched upon, as a resource, though through thinking of them as lesser beings. And I so look forward to the day when we understand who they truly are and heal this relationship. So my reply, how they will be freed holds many possibilities, multiple playouts and timelines. Animal rights activists will play a huge part in this. Awake and aware politicians, yes, there will be and already are such individuals, believe it or not, there are. Awake and aware politicians, disclosure as it presents itself more and more. So what I'm saying here is awake and aware politicians, along with animal rights activists, will play a huge part in the freeing of this reincarnational cycle that the battery farmed animals are caught within. Disclosure as it presents itself more and more through these animal rights activists and awake and aware politicians, and through others, but predominantly those two groups, then the situation regarding factory farming will show itself to the unaware. So the animal rights activists and the awake and aware politicians might not necessarily be, if you will, whistleblowers, but because of the way that they think and the way that they work, it will create a disclosure. And as disclosure presents itself more and more in multiple different subjects, then factory farming will be part of that through these two groups. And the unaware individuals will begin to see this. Now, the other thing I picked up when responding to this question is that this may seed itself from a nefarious act. So what might seem like a overlord agenda, as in hijacking the food chain to deliberately cause scarcity, and then that being exposed, and I'm speaking, of course, about my fictional novel when I say all this, this may seed itself as well as part of this exposure. So animal rights activists and everything they are doing, awake and aware politicians and the way that they will be working, and the things that they will be bringing to attention in various different countries, domains, and this nefarious act, as in the Overlord agenda of food scarcity, all of this together, as in a backfiring, if you will. So what is supposed to be a trapping system and a hijack for humanity specific to the food chain will backfire and cause exposure and awakening in a much larger group, as that has been happening ever since the beginning of 2020. And before that, but predominantly since 2020, it's been happening hugely. But ultimately, this freeing of this reincarnational trap that these animals are caught within, ultimately this will come from compassion at critical mass level, specific to farmed animals, specific to animals who are battery farmed. When compassion reaches critical mass, then that's when the energetic, that call is then put out into the antimatter realm and begins to manifest. And I'm told this process has already started. It was 2022, well, 2021 as well, and into 2022, that this has all started to seed, and more will become aware. Of course, it's been hijacked as well. So what is presented as animal rights is actually another way to use a Trojan horse to get items into the fairies in the village, and that's through, let's say, the hijacking of the plant-based community and the vegan philosophy, because you can be plant-based or vegan using healthy whole foods, or you can be plant-based and vegan using all this frankenfoods. So that's a hijack of that. But that doesn't mean that the philosophy itself is not of the light and part of the light body requirements as you go forward. That's all in lessons from a Living Lemuria. So this is a huge question. The other part of the question was, what is our highest service on their behalf? And this is love and the embracing of every animal as an individual soul, whether they're part of a group, as in factory farming, or organic, happy farming where the animals are looked after properly, or whether it's pets. It's to see those animals as a living soul rather than a commodity or a resource, as the questioner mentioned. That is the greatest service that we can give to the animals, is to understand that they're just as much of an emanation from source as the humans are. They are our brethren. They are the animal kingdom brethren. They are our comrades. They're our family. To see them that way is the greatest service that we can give to them, and how we can stand on their behalf. Now, actually standing on the behalf of the animals can be done in multiple ways, and this is why what I picked up here is animal rights activists, which actually spans a huge group of people, because you don't have to be an activist as in protesting to actually stand for animal rights. So that would encompass not just plant-based eaters and vegans, or animal rights activists who actually do that in an activism way, but it would also include anyone who holds honor for animals. And they may be individuals who are consuming animals, but they're doing that in an aware way, giving thanks, and they are procuring their food from farms that are more aware and that are allowing those animals to live a happy life. So there are multiple levels to what is meant by animal rights activists, and all of them will be standing for the animals in various different ways. So this is huge, because it will change the way agriculture and farming is done. But I will add, in the novel, there's a hijack going on, as with every single raise in vibration within every structure. there's an attempt on hijacking it. So we have to look out for that. It's the same with anything to do with green living and the climate and ecology. Everything is true and real and so important. And then there's a hijack there as well, and we have to know the difference. Okay, moving on to the next question. Magenta. I always felt my dog was a healer and was somehow of a higher vibration than just a dog, or even a third-dimensional human. Is it possible that a higher being can incarnate as a dog to help, as in service? My reply was, many dogs hold healing abilities. Cats also, as well as horses, rabbits, and even fish. So it depends what you mean by higher being. So the answer to that is yes, if you are referring to elemental or angelic entities, angelic elemental consciousness, absolutely. But if we're looking at a soul on a path to individualization that has already moved into human incarnation, then very rarely would they, if you will, go back. And it's not really a backwards move because of the light and the high vibration that's there as a potential and as an opportunity within all these incarnations. From a human linear perspective, it's a moving back in the soul's evolution on a linear level. So rarely would they go back, if you will, into an animal incarnation, especially at planetary end times and collective ascension, because they're moving from 3D into 5D, and the animal kingdom is moving into the higher echelons of 3D from more of a lower echelons of 3D or even 2D, but it's more maneuvering through these harmonics of the third dimension in the animal kingdom. And that's only some animals, not all animals. As I've said before, dolphins are already sixth dimensional. So it's a complex subject, and it's not something I'm going to be able to really deep dive into in this video, but I'm responding as intensively as I can to these questions and adding a bit more as I'm making this video. It is an important topic, and so many of us are animal lovers, so many of us share our lives with cats and dogs, and then obviously we have rabbits and guinea pigs and hamsters and all sorts, horses, and then there are individuals who will be called to live with farm animals and create their own sustainability and have farm animals to assist them in that. So this is very much part of the whole ascension process within the third dimensional reality as to how things are going to move forward. So the next question, typically, what is the first incarnation from animal to human like? Before I respond to this question, one of the other questions asked previously was, someone had said, Magenta, animals don't incarnate as human. It's not possible for that to be the case. They stay as animals and humans stay as humans, and they're on different evolutionary paths, or words to that effect. And that's true that they're on different evolutionary paths, but that does not mean that the soul is not given opportunity to move through these different paths. On a linear level, when it comes to individualization, there is a journey, and that journey would be through animal into human. There is a progression. You can move to human, a higher vibrational animal life and be close to humans in that life, and that will call you into a human incarnation next time with your life. So absolutely this occurs. It isn't correct to say that an animal can never incarnate as a human, but on a linear level, one doesn't jump between one life and another. That obviously occurs on a multidimensional level because every incarnation is happening all at the same time. So it's a continuous jump from one to the other, and it isn't linear. But on a linear level, there is a progression, and one moves through the animal kingdom into human. So this was a response to that post. Typically, what is the first incarnation from animal to human like? So they're asking about once you've been animal and then you move into your first incarnation as a human on that linear individualized progression. What's that human incarnation like? And the questioner goes on to say, I work with 2 children who are very low level academically, and they both struggle somewhat socially and emotionally. One is obsessed with foxes, the other is obsessed with cats. And I have wondered for a while if this was a possibility. So my reply was, this depends on the soul's experience and their chosen blueprint. But in many cases, they will hold high levels of innocence in that first life. They will be quite innocent compared to other humans. They will hold a naivety. They will often hold obsession and great love for one particular kind of animal, as your examples show. In fact, that love can go above their love for humans in many cases. And I know someone who has been that way since childhood and has had a particular affinity for one type of animal, to the point where this person as a child wanted to actually transform themselves into being this animal. So the answer to the question is yes. If you've got 2 children like this and one's obsessed with foxes, the other cats, it's highly likely that one has come from a fox incarnation and the other one from a cat incarnation, highly likely. Magenta, I feel our consciousness has progressed from mineral to plant to animal and then into the human kingdoms. This is what someone stated. And my reply was, that is correct regarding linear incarnational progression. So that's exactly how it is. That is what the 9 show me. Mineral, plant, animal, human, on a linear progression, just from that perspective, in individualization. So there are caveats to this, and there are some souls, elemental, angelic, who don't incarnate into human and will incarnate into the animal kingdom because they are moving along an elemental or angelic line. Now, that may be where the misunderstanding comes from, saying that souls won't incarnate into the human kingdom. Those particular souls are not on a path to individualization. They're on a different path. It's a different kind of experience. There are so many possibilities and opportunities for experience of incarnation. It isn't just one way. So it's true that some souls won't come into the human kingdom, but they are not the souls on a path of individualization and ascension, which is where the absolute majority, if not all, the starseeds, I mean, obviously I would never say all, there's always these exceptions, but the very vast majority of ascending starseeds right now are on a path of individualization. So they would have taken this linear journey. They are not on an elemental or angelic line for incarnation at this time. Yes, they can come into the animal kingdom and they wouldn't move into the human kingdom, but the starseeds that are human right now, they have taken this linear progression from mineral to plant to animal, and now they are in the human kingdoms. And that's the journey to look at right now. That's important for us to remember because we're experiencing it, and that's part of our ascension process. Next question. Magenta, I'm wondering if cats operate on 4 and 5D and dogs on 3 and 4D. Now, the reason why they're asking this and where they've got this from is from a previous post a few weeks ago where I explain that cats are operating within the 4th and the 5th dimension and dogs are operating from the 3rd and the 4th dimension, predominantly to explain where the energies and the consciousness of the cat and the dog are. So this individual is drawing my attention towards that using that as the premise for the next part of the question. And what they said is, then why would they come into 4D human after a 4D, 5D experience? So I'll go through this again. If cats operate on a 4 and 5D and dogs on a 3 and 4D, why would they come into a 4D human after their 4 and 5D experience? I think probably this person meant to say 3D human, and in many ways we are 4D humans as well, so they might not have meant to have said that. So the next part of their question is it possible that our experience is not necessarily to start at a lower dimension and then go higher? They then went on to ask, when we ascend to 5D, are there no dogs in that experience? Or do we see their soul's essence? So convoluted there, but really, if cats operate on 4 and 5D, why would they then incarnate into 3D or 4D? So that's basically what this question is asking. If they're already operating on that higher dimensional perspective, why would they then come into a human incarnation? Because that's appearing, if you will, to be going backwards or downwards from a vibrational state. So it's not quite like that. Cats are not fully 4D or 5D. They have an aspect, or I won't say fragment because that's not quite the right word, but they have a partial, they're able to bilocate and trilocate, let's say. They are fully bilocational and trilocational. So they have consciousness in multi-dimensions all at the same time and are aware of that. That's what cats do very, very well. And if we want to learn about multidimensionality, we can learn a huge amount from the cat because that's what they do. Dogs are 3D, some higher 2D, but really they're 3D, lower 3D, through 3D, and ascending into 4D. And some of them are already operating in 4D. And that's because they are closer to the human. So it's like the third dimension, just because it seems to be a more dense dimension, and the fourth and the fifth dimension are lighter dimensions, that doesn't necessarily mean it's lower or it's backwards, because in many ways one is going forwards. And if you look at the linear progression, you will be progressing from mineral, plant, animal, and to human. And that is very much coming down in density because you're already in unified consciousness in the mineral and plant kingdoms. You're in a group soul consciousness very much when you're in the animal kingdom. And then you come into individualization through the pets, through pets that live closely to humans and into the human. So it really depends on perspective as to whether you see this as backwards, forwards, going up or going down. And if you look at my second book, Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template, this explains that all of these directions, upwards, downwards, left, right, they're all the same place. You're going to the same direction in all of these. And we have to piece that infinite structure. We have to compartmentalize that and piece that into sections in order to decode that higher dimensional geometry. We have to see this in a third dimensional sense. So that's why a lot of my posts, some people, not many, most people are fully following along in my groups, but some people don't get what I'm saying. They think I'm contradicting myself, or one person said the other day, I think you and the nine have been hijacked, because she didn't understand what I was saying, because I'm speaking from multiple different perspectives and multiple different dimensional perspectives. And that's what Ascension is the ability to see reality in its true picture, which is completely multidimensional, totally unified and fractalized and compartmentalized at the same time. That is the structure that we see and operate from. And so it can appear to one who's thinking in a third dimensional way that every statement is convoluted and possibly distorted and certainly contradictory. And it's difficult when you are writing small posts in a group. You can't suddenly just write. Most of these questions that I get deserve a book in and of themselves, just to do the answer justice, which is why I'm moving into the videos to explain more about each topic. So I'm going to look at this question. So if cats operate on 4 and 5D and dogs on 3 and 4D, why would they come into a 4D human or 3D human experience after their 5D experience? Is it possible that our experience is not necessarily starting at a lower dimension and going higher? And when we ascend to 5D, are there no dogs in that experience, or do we just see their soul's essence? So here's my reply. Sorry, there's more to this question. The question goes on to say, I didn't spot that. Yes, there's more. Finally, when we ascend to 5D, do we merge with our 5D higher self? Assuming we have a 5D higher self, as I heard that our higher self can be 5D or 7D. Or would we retain our individualization, and likely our 5D self would ascend to 7D? I guess that would make sense, since the purposes of incarnation is to ascend, retaining our individuality. So that last piece isn't specific to animals, it's about ascension per se, and great question. It is convoluted, I will read it again. When we ascend to 5D, do we merge with our 5D higher self? Assuming we have a 5D higher self, as I heard, our higher self could be 5D or 7D. Or would we retain our individualization? And is it likely that our 5D self would ascend to 7D? I guess that would make sense, since the purposes of incarnation is to ascend and retain individuality. Okay, let's look at my reply. Is it possible that our experience is not necessarily to start at a lower dimension and go higher? My response to this is yes. This is the way it is, for the soul's experience is non-linear. The linear journey appears to be higher evolution, but that is only in the sense of progression into the human form. So I've explained this just now when I'm talking about the directional axis and how all these directions are actually moving to the same place. I go on to say that dimensionally, dolphins already exist in a higher dimensional state than even ascending humans, because dolphins are 6D, they're 6th dimensional, but they still haven't moved into the human kingdom. Dolphins are different, and they are far more connected to the angelic and the elemental realms, and many dolphins probably wouldn't be on that line. However, some are. There are starseeds here today who have memories of being dolphins, and they have moved to the animal kingdom from the dolphin kingdom, and they would have moved from a 6th dimensional entity into a 3rd dimensional entity, a human. So you're coming down in that sense, but you're progressing forward by moving from the animal kingdom into the human kingdom. So there are so many different directional ways of perceiving this soul's progression in incarnation. I did also say, for more information on the non-linear progression of souls, see my Blue Star Solstice series on YouTube. So on YouTube, I have a series of playlists, and if you look for the Blue Star Solstice one, this discusses this. I talk about this non-linear progression of souls and the linear progression of souls, the inception points. I talk about this in that particular playlist. So I then go on to say we will experience dogs in 5D if we choose to. So nothing will change in that respect. If we want to be with our pet dog, we can make the choice to experience that, just as we do here. However, the incarnated dog will not experience that dimension but will experience the connection with the human. Even though that dog is in a different dimension, the connection is still made. A 3D individual, be they animal or human, can still interact with someone holding 5D consciousness, but they only perceive the 3D aspect. If the 5D individual chooses to express that part of themselves. So in Ascension, souls, incarnated souls, human souls, will choose to be fully 5D. They won't want to express the 3D aspect of them. They will therefore, it won't be likely for those souls that they will have interactions with 3D individuals. It will be from the third dimensional perspective as if those souls have just disappeared somehow. They just won't be able to recognize them or see them or process what they are. But there are other souls, when they go through Ascension, that will choose to anchor the third dimensional self as well. And they will express that part of themselves. They will have the choice to do that. So they can be 3D, 4D, and 5D, which many souls, especially the indigo souls, will be doing. Which is why integration and understanding of these multidimensional viewpoints are so important now. As we go through Ascension, we will need to understand that more and more. For those that are moving simply to 5D, it's not so important for them to have integration, and they are more the crystal individuals. They are more about feeling, being, and being in that flow. And I've spoken about this before. Moving on to the next part of that question, I said, when we ascend, yes, we merge with our 5D higher self. Yes, we retain our individualization at 5D level. Yes, the 5D self is ascending to 7D. That's complex, however, and the easiest way to see this is as a dimensional shifting, as in all consciousness structures in all dimensions and densities are shifting upwards, assuming they're polarized positive service to others. It's completely different on the service to self line, but on the service to others line, all consciousness structures in all dimensions and densities are shifting upwards. That's the easiest way to see this. So when one says 5D self is ascending to 7D, so if we go back to the actual question that the individual asked and said, when we ascend to 5D, do we merge with our 5D higher self? The answer to that is yes. Assuming we have a 5D self, the answer to that is yes. As I heard, our higher self can be 5D or 7D. The answer to that is we have both, but some of us can only access the 5D self, and others, much more rare individuals, can access the 7D self, but they're both available. Or would we retain our individualization, and is it likely that the 5D self would ascend to 7D? That's also correct. All of these are correct. It's just different perspectives of saying the same thing. So as this is so complex, I did turn this over to the 9. I asked the 9 if they would like to comment on this particular topic, which isn't specific to animals. It's about this ascension through the dimensions. So this is what the 9 said. The 5th dimensional self you speak of is the aspect of you that exists within that dimensional reality. This aspect of you, as an echo projected from your 3rd dimensional reality, exists always in perpetual momentum. At the time of ascension, you do indeed merge with that aspect of self. We, as the higher guidance structure, would say that at this point you merge with us. And we mean this in the sense that the 5th dimensional self is the springboard into multidimensional or galactic memory and consciousness. And this is where you shall find the us that are we, and indeed merge with that us, we. In truth, however, it is not the 3rd dimension that projects the higher dimensional aspects as an echo, but the other way around. You in matter are the physical echo of the higher dimensional aspects. The coming together within merge of the light, antimatter, with the physical matter self is the alchemical unification that takes place at the time of ascension. So from this perspective, 5D, 6D, 7D, 8D, and beyond are light or plasma body selves that already exist. Each fractalized holographic replica of Source is pulled up through the true cosmic gravity, or the pull into the centrifugal movement that is the grand central sun magnetism. From your perspective, you can see this as 5D self ascending to 7D, for this would not be erroneous. But in truth, it is the cosmic upward gravitational pull towards the grand central sun that is occurring for you. For those that hold the alignment for service to the whole, that which you know as service to others or positive polarization. We are the white-winged collective consciousness of 9. So I will leave this video there, and I would just like to say thank you so much for listening to these videos. I hope they're helpful. If you would like to send questions in yourself, please go on to my website, magentapixie.com. You'll find the email address we use, and you can send questions in. We can't guarantee, obviously, that every single question is responded to, but please do go ahead and ask a question if you would like to. So thank you very much for listening, and I send you all lots of love, and I will speak to you again. Bye.